You're watching VinylicPumaGaming. What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another subscriber Q&A, and this will be the first subscriber Q&A for the year of 2017. Now, a couple quick things before we start. Now, originally I said this was going to be on Wednesday, and it's today on Tuesday, so it's a day early. Ultimately, I got my signals crossed with my schedule, and I wanted to ensure that I had a video out for you guys today, so the Q&A is coming out today. This video will also not be scripted, which is going to be a departure from a lot of my previous Q&As, and I just wanted to try this out as an experiment and see what you guys thought about it. I also had a lot of people asking if I was going to do a face reveal in the comment section for the very last video, and what I will say is this, I plan on doing one at some point, but not right now, and that is where I'm going to leave that. So with all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and we will get started with the very first question. Okay, so our first question comes from Kellogg's Cornflakes. Nice name. And he asks, hey VPG, what specs do you have in your PC? Just wondering. Now, currently I have a GTX 770, a i5 4670K. I'm still running Windows 7, and I have about 16 gigs of RAM. And I really need to upgrade. I'm really starting to notice like a performance hit on a lot of the newer games. Actually, really with Fallout 4, I have never been able to play Fallout 4 on Ultra. And I know there's not really like that much of a difference for Fallout 4 on like medium as opposed to ultra, especially where like textures are concerned, but a lot of it is like I'm missing like a lot of the lighting effects, I think, and I really want a new GPU. And I think what I'm going to do this year, depending on what NVIDIA decides to do with their GPUs, I'm going to buy an entirely new PC this year, and I'll probably get like an i7 Kaby Lake and the 1080 equivalent of the new GPU that NVIDIA releases this year, if they decide to release a new GPU this year. Our next question comes from Zliing, and sorry if I pronounced that wrong, and he asks, VPG, what do you expect will be the next major plotline in Borderlands 3? It's going to have something to do with the vault. Honestly, it's really hard to say. I suspect we're going to have some like merging with Tales from the Borderlands into Borderlands 3. So I have a feeling that probably Reese and Fiona are probably going to be a big part of the plot. Maybe they become like vault soldiers. You know how in like the pre-sequel that Zarpedon got corrupted and kind of like was turning like pink and stuff, I guess because of Iridium. Well, probably that's what's going to happen to Reese and Fiona maybe, and we'll just have to see. It's really hard to say. Our next question comes from TwinBoar69, and they ask, Puma, what's your favorite Dark Souls game? I am going to say, of the two that I've played, because I haven't played Dark Souls 3, it's definitely going to be Dark Souls 1. And Dark Souls 1, like in terms of level design, gameplay, like ambience, and just it's like a memorable experience. I think Dark Souls 1 was by far much better than Dark Souls 2 was and will ever be. Dark Souls 2 isn't a bad game, it's just not a great game like Dark Souls 1 was. And I think a lot of that is just because of certain design decisions. Particularly one of the big ones for me is like weapon durability. Weapon durability was a thing in Dark Souls 1, but in Dark Souls 2, it's just ridiculous. Like, it feels like you'll swing your sword like 5 times and then your sword breaks. And I don't know, that always really annoyed me. But it is what it is, I guess. Our next question comes from Christian Ungerer, and he asks, Yo Puma, big fan, quick question. Live streams for Borderlands 2 or the pre-sequel, yes or no? For the pre-sequel, I'm probably not ever going to stream that game. I might stream Borderlands 2, and the reason why I would stream Borderlands 2 as opposed to the pre-sequel is because Borderlands 2 is a much more popular game to stream on Twitch, and it's a game that I think people would prefer to see. Ultimately, we're just going to have to see. Really, the thing with live streaming is I need to set aside the time to do it, and lately with the longer videos that I've been making for YouTube, they take a lot longer to make, and I'm just going to have to figure out how to work it in somehow. No guarantees. Our next question comes from Big Bunny, and they ask, what do you think Fallout 5 will be about? Really hard to say. My hope is that it's located in like the central eastern part of the United States. So places like Ohio, Kentucky, and then maybe Tennessee. Although ultimately, I think it's either going to be New Orleans or they're going to have another game on the West Coast. While I like the West Coast and it's where the game started, and a lot of people really like New Vegas, I actually kind of don't like that setting. Not because the setting is bad or anything, it's just, I feel like it's been done before. And what I sort of liked about Fallout 3 and even Fallout 4 to a certain extent was that they were in different places and they could kind of make their own mark on that new area. And really, it would be nice to see a game that was in New Orleans or that was in like Ohio or somewhere, because that would be really interesting, and that's something that we haven't seen before. Now, as far as what the game will be about, it's really hard to say. Maybe it'll involve the railroad, some synths, or something else. Our next question comes from Terry W., and he asks, do you think Borderlands 3 will be online only? And would you prefer to share a bath with Moxie or Maya? I'll answer the latter of the two questions first. Moxie's pretty hot, but in a certain way, I kind of like Maya more. I don't really know why, I just do. As to whether Borderlands 3 will be always online or not, I really hope it's not. But given how a lot of people bought The Division and bought Destiny, I think a lot of those players are going to expect an always online experience. And that may be one of the reasons that Gearbox decides to make Borderlands 3 always online. I guess we'll see what happens, but again, I really hope it's not always online. Our next question comes from the Backup Rogue, and they ask, do you plan to cover a span of more games in the future, or are you going to focus on the series you're covering right now? Really, my goal is to do a combination of both. My goal is to try to cover some new games that I think my audience would be interested in, and that's basically all I think I'm really going to say right now. But yes, I do plan on covering some new games. Our next question comes from Darcy Bullock, and she asks, what's your favorite race in Elder Scrolls? I really like the Breton in Skyrim, and that's because of the magicka resistance that it has, and I think that really puts it over a lot of the other characters. I guess the High Elf and the Altmer are really good in Skyrim too. I guess in terms of like what character class that I like to play mostly, it is definitely going to be the Breton. My least favorite race in Skyrim is going to be the Wood Elf. Speaking of the Elder Scrolls, our next question comes from Jaffasaur, and he asks, so if the Elder Scrolls 6 were to come out soon, what would you want to be in it? Like weapons, armor, character creation, and landscapes, etc. #PumaQA. Really, I actually really liked a lot of the way Skyrim is designed, to where if you were using like swords or you're using like one-handed weapons, it would level up one-handed weapons. And I liked that affinity system, so to speak. And really, as far as weapons and armor go, I'd like to see a lot of stuff return, but I would also like to see a lot of new stuff as well. I'd really like to see Fallout 4's weapon customization appear in some way in the Elder Scrolls 6. And I think it would be really cool if you could modify like the pommels to improve your grip and increase damage somehow, or just like things like that would be really interesting. Maybe you could customize the type of edge that's on your sword somewhat, to where maybe you could have it be super thin or super fine to where it will like deal the most damage, or you could have it rough to where it deals more blunt damage and will break bones and stuff. Like, that would be kind of interesting as an idea. Really, though, I think I would really like the next Elder Scrolls game to be in a brand new engine that's sophisticated, or at the very least that's more sophisticated than the engine that they've been using since they developed Oblivion. Our next question comes from Stubbly List 1981 Gaming, and they ask, what's your favorite unique weapon from Borderlands 1, 2, and the pre-sequel? From Borderlands 1, I really like the Nemesis and the Ogre. From Borderlands 2, it's probably the Norfleet. Although I also actually kind of like the Chulane. It's just, I don't like the self-slag. The self-slag sucks. And for the pre-sequel, it's probably either Kanada's Laser or the Absolute Zero. We've got another Borderlands question here, and that's going to be from Ripper115, and they ask, Puma, do you think Borderlands 3 will dedicate a gun to Yodislayer? You know, I would like to see something, but I don't think it's probably going to happen. A lot of people have talked about the circumstances of his death, which are very tragic, and I'm sure there are a lot of people that feel that they are very controversial. You also have to think about the family and how they would feel about dedicating something to Yodislayer in Borderlands 3. Now, there is the likelihood that they would be honored by that, but there's also the likelihood that they could be offended by that. It's ultimately a really sticky situation, in my opinion, and it's probably going to be something that Gearbox avoids. Our next question comes from George Smith, and he asks, what is your favorite video game developer? Now, I know a lot of people are going to expect me to say like Bethesda Game Studios or Gearbox Software, but really it's neither. While I definitely like both of those developers a lot, it's actually pretty hard for me to choose just one video game developer. Lately, though, I think I'm probably going to say that I really like Sucker Punch. For those of you that don't know, they make the Infamous lines of games for the PlayStation, and I've played Infamous Second Son and Infamous First Light, and I have really enjoyed both games. And who knows, maybe I'll have a new favorite developer in a couple of months. It just really varies based on what games come out and what I'm playing at the time. Our next question comes from Mateo Lupus, the Workaholic Loser, and he asks, I want to know if you've had any concepts for your own shields and weapons, if like a T-Door sniper or a gun that casts special projectiles instead of melee damage. I've made some modded weapons in the past and I've delved with it, and it's actually something that's kind of fun to do, to where you can make your own guns within Borderlands 2 in the pre-sequel. But the thing is that you need a PC version of the game, and you're going to have to use cheat engine, and a lot of people probably aren't going to do that. Honestly, I think it's another reason why we need user-generated content for Borderlands 3. Now, whether Gearbox decides to do that or not, I guess that's ultimately going to be up to them. But to answer your question, yes, I've had some concepts for my own weapons, and I had one called the Double D, which was a combination of a Jacobs pepper box and the Hale assault rifle. And what I was able to do was I was able to put I believe it was the Ruby weapon skin on top of the pepper box, and it made the whole thing look really good. And then when I went into like the INI files for the game, I was able to change like the name of the gun, so it actually appeared as the Double D, and then I was also able to change the red text too, and it was pretty cool. I'll link that video in the description if you're curious. Our next question comes from Ethan Grasmick, and he asks, what are your thoughts on other looter shooters like The Division and Destiny? In a certain way, I can't really say because I haven't played either game. What I will say was a big turnoff for me, and I sort of talked about this earlier, was the fact that both of those games are always online. Now, I guess there are some people that like that for some reason, but for me personally, I don't want to have a PSN subscription just so I can play Destiny, or an Xbox Live subscription to play Destiny. And while The Division is available on PC, and I could have bought that game, part of the reason I didn't do that is I sort of don't like Ubisoft's Uplay DRM, and that also kind of annoyed me too. I've heard a lot of positive and negative things about both games, but I really can't say any more than that because I haven't played either of them. Our next question comes from Mason Crow, and he asks, what is your favorite game ever, and your favorite game that is not on your channel? Lately, I've really liked Infamous, but I can't really say that I have like one favorite game ever. I've probably got multiple, and I grew up with like Zelda Ocarina of Time. That was a really sick game. I really liked Super Smash Bros. Melee. Really, my first console was a GameCube, and that was a phenomenal console, and Super Smash Bros. Melee was on that console. Ocarina of Time was, I guess, technically, although it originally released on the N64. I also really liked Pokemon back in the day, but I haven't played a new Pokemon game, I believe, since Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green. Really, when they went from, I guess, the Game Boy Advance to the DS, I sort of lost interest. But I really liked those games, and I'm pretty sure I would really like them again if I just bought a 3DS and played those games. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and answer my last question here, and that is going to be from Kobe. And he asks, will you be doing Let's Plays anytime soon? I originally thought about doing one for Borderlands 2, and I might still do one for Borderlands 2, but I feel like as a YouTube channel, you've got to be kind of careful with Let's Plays. I've seen a lot of really popular channels move on and start making Let's Plays, and they get major view decreases because of that. At the same time, there are also people that have done really well doing that. Ultimately, I don't think I would ever become a Let's Play channel, but I might do a Let's Play of Borderlands 2. We'll just have to see. Alright guys, that's going to wrap up this particular Q&A. If you like this video, please be sure to leave a like, and as always, take care, and I'll see y'all next time.